Denver Broncos 16.
Ah.
Chargers 9. This could be the second fewest notes.
It is my second fewest
of
notes.
any game.
Yeah.
You sent me. What did you say? What happened in this game? I said Lil Jordan Humphrey happened. Every now and again, Lil Jordan just looks like a baller.
Little Jordan Humphrey being a better player for the Denver Broncos than Jerry Jeudy, there's something just injustice about that. It shouldn't be the case, and yet it is.
Lil Jordan with a 54-yard touchdown, the only touchdown in this football game. And like I said, every now and again, he's just like this unstoppable force as a receiver. Great play for the 54-yarder. That was it from Jarrett Stidham. Stidham got the start for Russell Wilson, of course.
And the win.
In the win. Got a pretty clean game.
Vindicated.
For Stidham. I know.
Not a good one, but yeah.
What's that?
Not a good one, but reasonably clean.
Reasonably clean.
Yeah. It's probably not. I mean, like, you wouldn't say from a, like, remember, this was dressed up as a football decision. Yeah, Jarrett Stidham gives us the best chance of winning. Russell Wilson doesn't. It's got nothing to do with the $37 million that becomes guaranteed if he gets hurt in the last couple of games.
I meant to say clean stat line.
Yeah.
Away with one.
So from a football point of view, you wouldn't be looking at this and saying, well, we definitely got it right. We upgraded a quarterback. He's been better. I mean, Stidham was probably worse in this game than Russell Wilson has been in most games this season.
Yeah. I mean, we did hear from Russ this week. He was pretty candid about what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bigger story. Both teams are eliminated from the playoffs. Broncos are 8-8. Chargers are 5-11. Easton Stick's played a little bit better these last few weeks. The offense they're just so beat up. Alex Erickson's getting all the targets. He had 7 catches for 98 yards. Quentin Johnston still not, taking that next step to be excited about him for next year if you're the Chargers.
I mean, he was matched up with Patrick Peterson for a lot of this game, and it's like that just
Surtain?
Patrick Surtain. And it's like that just felt mean. He's already struggling without putting him on one of the best corners in the NFL, who's also quite physically capable of, bringing to the table whatever he can, whatever physical attributes he has to try and help him. You're like, I mean, that you don't need to do that. You know what I mean? You could have left the other guy on Quentin Johnston, and it still would have been okay. Now it just feels like you're rubbing it in.
So, yeah, the thing I want to say, Russell Wilson basically rehashed them asking him to change his contract, and he said, well, no, can't do that. I'm going to go to the NFL and the NFLPA and say, let's not do that. So that was back in October when they had 1 or 2 wins. Oh, no, he said it was after they beat Kansas City. And you hear Russ being like, man, I was hoping we were going to go on a little run and turn things around. We just beat the Chiefs. And they were talking about him changing his contract so they could bench him.
They basically tried to strong-arm him into dropping the clause in his contract that gives him the $37 million guaranteed if he gets hurt, and essentially threatened. They blackmailed him and said, if you don't drop that, you'll be benched because we don't want that. We're going to go in a different direction in the offseason, and we don't want to pay you that $37 million. So if you want to stay in this job, you've got to drop that clause in your contract. I have no idea how those rules exactly work, but from the way the NFLPA reacted, it sounds like that's not allowed. Whether or not it's allowed, it certainly seems like a fairly cheap way of negotiating. And it would be interesting to know now from Denver's perspective, or from Sean Payton's perspective, effectively, like when they decided the Russell Wilson thing, like was this predetermined before this year? Like had he looked at Russell Wilson last year and said, not a chance, like this is never going to work? Or did they give him a shot and decide quite early, you know what, whether or not he plays well, don't like the guy, not going to be my guy, Or did he just say, okay, this is as good as I can make it happen and it's still not good enough, we're going, like, where along the way did Sean Payton decide,
I would love to know that,
Russ is not my guy, I don't care how much it's going to cost us, we're moving on in the offseason?
I would love to know that too, because it could have been, I saw the film last year, we can't do it, to your point. But based off Sean Payton's comments that Nathaniel Hackett had the worst coaching job in history, there was he probably went into training camp with optimism. Yeah. Now, was it day 1 of training camp? He's like, this isn't going to work.
It's not necessarily just a football thing, right? It's like Russell Wilson is this, cornball that is sort of talked about as he's a very unusual personality, right? So it could just be, regardless of how well he can make it work on the field, Sean Payton is like, I cannot do this with this guy, right? I cannot work with a dude that wants to exercise and do jumping jacks on the plane on the way home from London. I can't make that happen. So we're going to go in a different direction.
I do know Sean Payton now. What are the stats? What was he without his starting quarterback?
It was good and before Denver.
When Breeze was injured in 2020, he was like 5-0, 6-0.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater in 2021, he had Jameis Winston initially, and then bounced around with all sorts of different guys and kept winning games. He wins a game here with Jarrett Stidham. You could make the argument that Sean Payton's offense has Russell Wilson's stats looking pretty good: 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, and passer rating and all that stuff. Like, there's still probably some good stuff coming from Sean Payton through that lens. I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do.
Well, that's the thing.
At QB going forward, though.
They're in a similar it's a similar dynamic, and they're in a similar situation to the Raiders when they decided, okay, we're out on Derek Carr, we're going to bench him to avoid his money
Bring Jarrett Stidham in.
Bring Jarrett Stidham in as the Grim Reaper of veteran quarterbacks, and then we're going to go in a different direction. And okay, that makes sense, and it made more sense for the Raiders than it does for Denver to a degree. But you're in kind of the same problem, which is, okay, now what's the plan, right? And Denver's in a really tough spot for that because, number one, their record isn't terrible. So they're not sitting there, like they're not looking at Chicago's spot and going, we're good. We got the number 1 pick and we got another one later on. Denver does not have the draft picks to just immediately select the next guy. And they got a ton of money tied up in Russell Wilson's contract, even if they're moving on from him. So they can't do the other thing, which is make a big splash for a quarterback trade, whatever. I don't know where they're getting the next guy from.
Well, after the way Michael Penix played last night, 24 years old with bad multiple ACL knees and the whole deal, he still might be in the top 15 now. Penix and Jaden Daniels, we might be looking at 5 QBs in the top 15 if the NFL loves Bo Nix. So that could be part of it.
I mean, Denver is currently picking 14 overall. And they're the second of the 8-8 teams at that spot. So
they might seriously be in the mix for Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, or Michael Penix for next year. We'll have plenty of time to discuss that. That's it for this one. 16-9. Get no more use. No more use for this game.